Today we're going to be talking about the challenges of distance learning from the teacher's perspective. Joining me in a bit are two seasoned teachers who are caught in the midst of pivoting from classroom teaching to doing so from a distance. While distance learning isn't a new phenomena, especially since a few private universities have been offering online courses for quite some time, but this sudden mass national shift to online learning during COVID-19 is something we've never seen before. So we're going to be taking a look at how students are coping and how are the teachers keeping students engaged and interested. And from a personal perspective, I wonder from a business mindset as we look beyond COVID-19, does this create a space for an evolving business model in all schools, especially as technology and learning methods continue to evolve? I'm Michael Robinson, host of the Michael S. Robinson Show here on Microbin Radio. Welcome to our live streaming of our series, US Beyond COVID-19. We're here every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Facebook, look for Michael Robinson NY, and on YouTube, it's Michael S. Robinson. Please subscribe to the channel, and if you like what we're saying, give us a thumbs up. Comments, questions are always welcomed. My next guest has been teaching for the past 11 years with a master's degree in special education. He is a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing. His name is Jim Pinkson. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you. And also joining us is Douglas Marks. Doug has been teaching mathematics for the past 27 years at the same high school. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Michael. It's very nice to see you.
It's nice seeing you also, actually. So we're going to have a conversation about what this all means. Like, I think about conceptually what it means. I know we're using Zoom and things like that. So Jim, I'm going to start with you. What is the setup for teaching remotely for you in particular?
Well, for me, it's working in my home, creating a space that's comfortable for me and comfortable for the students who have to join me in this atmosphere.
So are you using a particular software in order to communicate with the students? How is it done?
Yes, I'm using Teams, Microsoft Teams.
So,
and that has...
So are you able to see the students in particular while you're teaching?
Yes, I can see the students can see me. There's a lot involved because there's other teachers, there's interpreters working with me. So we have to have a setup that is conducive to everyone so that the student especially who uses that sign language mode of communication can see the interpreter, can see the teacher, can see myself.
Right.
As we work together.
How many students are in your class altogether?
Altogether, I will see across the week 11 students throughout the course of the week.
Yes.
On a daily basis, it's about 4 a day.
And Doug, what about you? What sort of setup do you have, and how many students are in your class, and how do you communicate with them?
Well, thank you, Michael. I teach math at the high school, and I have about 100 students. And even before this whole process began, when I go to parties and meet people on the street and they ask what I do for work, and I say I'm a math teacher, more than 50% of them say, oh, math was so rough, it was one of my hardest subjects.
Right.
So starting with that and trying to go online has definitely had its challenges and complications.
Right.
I'm set up in 3 spots in the house. I work in the dining room. Right now I'm in the dining room, so it's just a blank wall behind me. And then I also work in the kitchen, and I set up a workspace in the garage, believe it or not, on a table and a couple chairs. So when the weather's nice, they open up the doors, so at least I can look outside as I'm doing lesson plans, but I'm interacting with 100 kids. Um, every day there's a new assignment, so I've got 100 kids I'm responsible for to get through Algebra 2 up in New York and college calculus with my seniors.
So, Jim, you are dealing with students that are hard of hearing. What are the challenges? Because I imagine there are many. I mean, if you're in the classroom, there's more hands-on, right? So how do you navigate this obstacle?
The challenge is that they are deaf and hard of hearing students who use sign language as a mode of communication. So we have to make sure that everything that we do, that I do, the hands are visible, the face is visible, there's no background noise happening around them. The Microsoft Teams is wonderful in that aspect because it allows the student to see what's happening, and we can communicate with them directly. So the lessons are direct lessons, which is nice because it hasn't really changed my delivery format for them. What's changed is the physical aspect of being there in front of them. That part obviously makes it a little bit of an impact, but most of my students, believe it or not, have risen to the occasion and are actually doing much better online than they are in the classroom. They're actually
Wow.
wearing their hearing devices that they might be shy to wear around their peers in school. They're more attentive to the work they do. They feel freer to ask questions. So it's become a lot for them because in addition to that, they're getting the one-to-one direct service that
Right.
I do offer in the regular school setup, but now it's even more intimate in that
Right.
capacity. So.
Right. Because I was going to ask you, Doug, about how do you keep your students interested and engaged? I mean, it's really hard when you're thinking of well, you first of all, tell us what age students you've got in your classroom, and then tell us how you're able to keep them engaged and interested.
My students are from 10th grade through 12th grade, so their ages are 15 through 18 years of age. Um, I actually want to just bounce off of what Jim said. Some of my students that were struggling in the beginning of the year are actually doing better because I put videos out every day. And I encourage my kids, if I'm going too fast, stop the video or go back a few minutes or take your time. And the ones that need it taught a little bit slower are definitely doing better. What I do is I give homework every day, and I tell my kids every day through my videos and in my emails to them, I love you guys, I respect you guys, I'm in awe that you're rising to this occasion. This is really tough. But your homework is due tomorrow, and if they don't submit it, I send them an email. I work on Google Classroom, so I send them a message saying, where's my homework? I need the homework. Where's my homework? So I'm a little bit annoying with the kids. And if I don't get the homework within 3 or 4 days, then I call home and I ask the parents. So it's working because I'm so annoying. But I don't have any kids to take care of here. A lot of my coworkers can't do that because they have to worry about their own kids. It only works because I've turned my teaching into a hobby and an obsession. I'm basically doing something every day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, we'll tell our audience what you do after students graduate from your class. It's really fascinating. But Jim, I want to turn to you and talk about this from your perspective in terms of how you keep your students engaged, because you know, it's one thing when you're in the classroom with them. The other thing that I'm thinking about is when you are at home, there are a lot of distractions. And how involved are the parents in terms of ensuring that, you know, the people, the kids are actually on point in terms of paying attention and doing what they're supposed to do? How are the parents involved in this whole process?
I'm glad you mentioned that because the parent involvement is huge and it's crucial. I send a lot of emails, agree with Douglas, there's a lot of emails that go out to the parents about the lessons, what's coming up, what I need from them for the week, emails to the students, teaching the students how to respond in an email format, how to submit their work. I use a lot of visuals with them in their lessons. So there are a lot of videos that are used. There's as far as the parent component, my parents have been very involved with that. They've been assisting the students, making sure they're up on time. Class starts for me at 9:15 and it runs until at least 3 o'clock. So the students are in a full, with a lunch break in between, and breaks in between some of those classes, but the students are fully engaged. They have a schedule, they know how to follow that schedule, which teachers they're seeing next, and I'm following with them into each classroom setup. So it really is working that way. The parents are there to make sure that the students have what they need. If they needed, I had a student who computer stopped working just as we were starting to do our distance learning, and they went out and purchased a new computer for the student so that he could have the proper things that he needed to function. And then the mom sat there with us as we processed him through how to use his computer, how to find things, how to navigate through that. And he's a pro.
Wow, that's
at
great.
it now, 2 months into it, he's really taken a liking to it. So it's been good, but the parent involvement is so important.
Sure.
And keeping the parents aware and updated on everything that's happening is very important. So that communication has to stay open.
Now, let's talk a little bit about benchmarks, because obviously, if you're not in a classroom, you don't know how much someone is actually paying attention or learning or retaining what you've taught them. And traditionally, benchmarks have been tests, right? How do you ensure that there is retention and that there is a process of learning on the end of the student's part? Doug, you can take that.
Okay, well, every day I give homework and I also give the key and I ask the kids, please try to do this on your own. A lot of my calculus kids do want to become engineers, so they're self-motivated. They really want to understand. I know some are just looking at the key and copying, but I suspect there's really no way to police this. They could be working together through Zoom meetings or FaceTiming. So I feel that as long as they're seeing the material, they're writing it down, and then every week, every 2 weeks, I give what's called a formative activity, which in my mind is like a very small test, like maybe 3 questions or 5 questions, and each question is worth a point. It's either right or wrong, and they have to do it on their own. But again, I suspect some are probably doing it in groups. There's no way to monitor that, but at least they are hopefully learning it. They get a point for each homework. They get a point. The formative activities are 3 points to 5 points. And my district is also given a grade based on this rubric. Are they showing up? Are they participating? I also have live lessons once a week. Are they asking questions? What are they doing? Their learning should be consistent with the learning from the beginning of the year. If it is, then we factor all that in to come up with a grade, believe it or not, which I do believe is pretty accurate for them.
So what about, I was wondering about the challenges, because that's what I wanted the show to be about. Not, of course, painting a picture of what the teacher has to deal with on a regular basis, but I'm sure that there are many challenges that I don't foresee or you haven't foreseen in terms of this process. What are the challenges that you face, Jim, as a teacher doing this remotely?
Some of the challenges can be the overload of the internet. There have been times when I'm in the middle of a lesson and the internet crashes, or you're in a meeting and the internet crashes, and you have to start your computer up all over again, and then the students will disappear on you. So then you're hunting them back down again because they think that you've ended the meeting when in fact that didn't happen. So that's a challenge, and it's something that you can't control. And those are the things that that you have no control over that happen. And so that's been one of the biggest obstacles. Having the students have the proper equipment is another thing that's very challenging to them. Having the materials, the right materials, working with special ed department. You have to make sure that certain protocols are in place because they're student IEPs, that are legal documents that have to be followed as closely as possible. So you want to make sure that you're providing that service to the student as closely as you can. So it's nice that I have a district that's been supportive in that aspect of guiding us, and saying this is what we need to do, this is how we move forward with this, and being open to questions and suggestions as well, because no one has all the answers, and that's the biggest challenge. We want to know what to do, and no one has all the answers. And so you stumble along the way, and then you figure that part out, and then something else comes up. But I think as we're processing through it, the challenges may become less and less. I think we're going to see more distance learning as we go forward. But the challenges become less and less because now you've reached that hurdle. You know what to do when this happens. So that happens.
Yeah, no, and it makes perfect sense. What about you, Doug? What challenges are you dealing with?
Oh, great question, Michael. I have two thoughts. The biggest challenge was when this started about 2 months ago, just setting this whole thing up. I work at a district where we have a phenomenal tech department, and I kept calling, emailing, texting, and people were there holding my hand, getting this all set up. And the second thought is, for those households where mom and dad are working from home, and they have 2 kids or 3 kids, but they don't have 5 computers. They have 2 computers, maybe an iPad, maybe they're using their cell phone. So they're trying to juggle the time. And as I said a few minutes ago, I'm strict with I need the homework in by a certain time, but I've been getting lots of messages and different correspondences from the parents and the kids. I can't because my mom's on the computer or my dad or my brother. I understand that. I guess the third, I'll add one more thing before I finish with this. It's the routine. In my school, the bell rings at 7:30, and then 40 minutes later, the bell rings again, and then 5 minutes after that, the second period begins. That routine that everybody is missing, and I know a lot of kids are sleeping in till noon, 1, 2 o'clock, they're up all night, they're doing work at 3 in the morning because that's when it's submitted. The routine for everybody, the parents, the students, the teachers, I think is the biggest challenge.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. What strategies do you think that, because obviously this is all work in progress, right? I mean, we just woke up one day and we have to do distance teaching or distance learning. What strategies or lessons you think we have learned that we can implement moving forward to make the process more efficient? Because this isn't going to go away tomorrow. Jim?
That's a good comment. That's a good question. I think how we move forward in this is looking back at what we didn't do, how we didn't prepare our students for technical supports. We have the Chromebooks, we have the computer system set up in the schools, but were the students really using them to the capacity that they could? So I think going forward, we look at it and say, okay, we have this happening now, we know what to do. I said probably in the future we won't have snow days, living in New England. Right. We may not have snow days anymore because now we know we can use a distance learning type of capacity. Having the students have the things that they need, that challenge of, one computer in a household of 5 kids. It's tough. So how we move forward with that, having lessons prepared ahead of time. I think that really caught us off guard. A lot of teachers, all of a sudden you're home and you don't have your lessons. You have to create new lessons. You have to, get the students on a routine. They're not on vacation. Some think that they are on vacation, not on vacation. Getting them to understand the school day runs from this time to this time, and you're expected to be there. So I think going forward, we'll be able to move smoother going forward because we can see in hindsight where we lack. And now we can teach the students and train the students and parents and teachers how to move forward with this technology that we have, that we can use it in a positive way.
Yeah, I just heard no snow days, and I'm thinking that some students are saying, "Oh no."
Maybe.
So, so what about you, Douglas? What are your recommendations in terms of strategies that could be implemented moving forward, seeing that this is all
Um,
very new and evolving for all
that
of
is the
us?
million dollar. That is the million dollar question, Michael. I'm a non-administrator classroom teacher for 27 years. I know administration is constantly having meetings, several Zoom meetings, 5, 10 meetings a day, trying to figure out what they're going to do to finish the year and the new school year. I think the reality is it has been rough and bumpy for a lot of us, but most people, most of the students now have some type of technology to work on. Most of them are working with their teachers, and teachers are working with the kids. So if
Hmm.
it turns out in September we have to start online, this is already set up. If it turns out that administration or the governor or the superintendent or whoever makes the decision says, you know what, class sizes are going to be smaller, so maybe half the time kids are coming to school, the other half they're at home. We have this set up, so I think we're going to build on this. I don't know where we're going to be in September, but I do know I have my iPad, I have my laptop, I have my smartphone. I'm set up,
Hmm.
and through all of these professional development meetings and meetings with the faculty and my department, we have a good foundation to go forward. So
I
we'll see
see.
how that turns out. In 6 months, let's reunite the three of us and see
Yes.
where we're at, and I'll
Right.
answer that a little more.
Yes, yes, yes. You know, it's actually very fascinating to me how we were able to uh, get into a groove so quickly. I mean, considering the fact that this wasn't something that we anticipated, right? So I think we are doing an amazing job. Just me from the outside looking in, obviously, having gotten our acts together and having this process in place of teaching from a distance. So I think it's phenomenal. Now, let's talk a little bit about the parents and then let's talk about the students. My question is, what advice would you give to students who are actually distance learning? What would you tell them that probably they need to hear? Jim?
Um, Something that I tell my students continuously is, we're all in this together. We're all learning the process together, and we'll get through it. I have a student who's graduating eighth grade this year, and she was so on the ball, and she's so concerned that I'm going to miss my graduation. And it's reminding her that, excuse me, that this is going to happen. You're going to graduate.
Sure.
Whatever we have to do to make it feel like a graduation, we'll do it. But they just reminding the students that they have to keep going. They have to keep that momentum going. They're still in school. School has not stopped. It's just a change in how it's happening. I remind my students that I myself, when I did some college courses, did them online. I
Hmm.
did them distance learning. And what was nice about it was I had a set schedule that I would keep. So having a schedule, knowing when things are due, knowing when your classes are, is so important. So once they learn a schedule and they're on that schedule, just remind them, let's keep going, we can do this, we've got a little bit of time left to go, we're going to get through it, and we'll all be together again. So as long as they keep that thought in their head, and the teachers keep the same
Right.
thought in
Right.
our heads, it will work out. But having a positive outlook on it, reminding the parent, students and parents.
Hmm. Hmm. What about you, Doug? What would you say to your students that would benefit them in this whole process of distance learning?
Well, I totally agree with Jim about having a schedule. If the kids know Monday I'm going to work from 10 to 2 or 6 to 10 at night, whatever is the schedule, but set up a schedule and adhere to it. Don't wait until Sunday night to do all the assignments for the week. That is crazy. Um, I was chuckling to myself as you asked the question, Michael, and as Jim, you were responding to it because I've taught seniors this calculus class for at least 15 years. I think it's my 16th year I'm teaching it. And at this point in the year, most of my seniors have senioritis. And I usually call home and threaten and motivate and beg and anything to keep them
Right.
committed.
Mm-hmm.
But with this online learning, all of my seniors, and I hope one day they listen to this broadcast, all of my seniors are actually really rising to the occasion, which I think is amazing. Um, Also, this is the new norm to some extent with all my seniors going to college. I think there'll be a lot more posted online, more learning online for them. My underclassmen, my 10th and 11th graders, um, to follow the schedule. It all comes down for them to set up a schedule. If they need to be in class during the day at certain hours, then that's what they have to do. But if they have videos, or if they have work or books they need to read, just try to set up a schedule because they're really monitoring themselves. Unless their parents are monitoring them, the teacher is not looking over their shoulder like the teacher would in the classroom.
Right. So there's a certain sense of maturity and responsibility that the students have to implement. I mean, it's almost like they're adults. Time management, it's something that I used to teach my staff all the time. You know, a lot of times people become overwhelmed with the workload, and I tell them you've got to manage your time wisely. And the same thing applies to students who are distance learning. You know, you have to have some sort of a plan, as you mentioned, so that they can be on target in terms of meeting the goals of the teacher or the curriculum as it's designed, I assume, right?
Yes.
So, Doug, you normally do something very interesting. I found it interesting when I heard about it years ago that you call all of your students on their birthdays and sing happy birthday to them. Tell us about that. Tell us why, how
Well,
it got started.
thank you for bringing this up. And the audience that's listening to me is probably thinking, "What? What does this man do?" Well, I don't have my own kids, and at this point in my life, I'm not going to have my own kids. So my students at school, I kind of adopt figuratively as my own students. And halfway through my career, so maybe 12, 13 years ago, I started promising if you get 100 on a test, or if you pass the Regents to someone who failed all the time, you know what, I'll call you on your birthday. And the kids thought, that's pretty cool. And then I kind of one upped myself saying, well, actually, you know what? I will call you on your birthday every year for the rest of my life. And I invite the kids, and now at my school I'm known as the guy that calls everybody on their birthday, in which I also use as a little bit of leverage. So if kids are not turning in the homework, I will send a comment like, don't you want a birthday call? Where I sing, I am not a great singer, but I can only sing happy birthday pretty well, but that's the only thing I can sing. And this is kind of funny. If there's one positive thing that came out of this pandemic, it's this. I do not have an iPhone. I have an Android. And I love my Android, and I love my friends' iPhones, but I had to get an iPad 2 months ago. So now what I do is, instead of just calling and singing, I FaceTime and sing. So some of these students of mine I haven't seen in 12 years, 13 years, and they are so ecstatic that they're seeing their teacher from 13
That's
years
great.
ago.
Yeah.
And you know what? They're still connected to the high school by me singing. So that's what thank you so much for bringing that up,
No,
Michael.
no, I think it's
Yourself
fantastic. It's a great incentive
or
for
my
sure.
class.
I mean, I wish my teachers were calling me every year to sing happy birthday to me, but you know, hey. What about you,
Thank
Jim?
you.
Do you have any incentives for your students at all?
Our incentives, I don't sing happy birthday to them, but
He has a great voice, by the way.
not, but
No, but it's
this
fantastic. It's
situation, we want to do with my interpreters. We got all, and we all signed happy birthday to her. So it made her, it gave the students that feeling of being connected with each other in a
sure,
social
sure.
aspect. So we do try to get the students, as long as we tell them if you're working hard all week on
Hmm.
Friday, we'll set up a social group for them where they can just be with their peers, and they can chat and they can talk about whatever they like. We're there kind of monitoring everything, but they're in their environment and they're comfortable with their peers. So we try to use that as an incentive. I have their addresses. I will send, things home. Great job with this, or we made it through this marking period. You did great. Especially now because we would do little rewards in school. So why not keep those rewards out of school? Maybe send pizza home to the house. Have a pizza
Pizza.
delivery.
Wow, awesome. Well, Jim Pinkson and
Those are
I'm sorry, go ahead. Jim?
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry,
I missed
did you
that.
say something? I missed you. I missed what you said.
But I just said, we try to keep the students motivated, in any aspect that
Okay,
we
very
can.
good. Very
I
good.
love the singing happy birthday to them,
Right?
forever.
I
I think
mean, that's fantastic.
that's
It's
a
really a
great idea.
beautiful, sentimental gift. And Douglas Marks and Jim Pinkston, thank you so much for joining us to talk about what's happening in the classroom, how distance learning is going on, what are the dynamics there? Because a lot of us, including myself, we're kind of a little bit lost. You hear about it on the news and you're wondering, how is that happening? So thank you so much for shedding some light on this, and thank you for joining us today and sharing your insight and your wisdom.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Michael.
We
Thank you
And
very
appreciate
thank
it.
much.
you,
Thank you.
and thank you also for teaching our wonderful students, giving them that beautiful gift of learning and understanding, and it's a priceless gift. You're actually on the front line when you come to think about it, even though you're not physically out there, but you're on the front line of learning and influencing the next generation. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
All right.